This morning, there are new developments in the Trump administration's push to reshape the federal government. Another department is now facing scrutiny from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE.
NBC News has learned that the acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Michelle King, stepped down over the weekend after she refused a request from DOGE to access sensitive data of millions of Americans at the agency. That is according to two sources familiar with the situation. Well, the White House later confirmed that King was no longer head of the agency.
NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist joins us now. Aaron, let's start there. What are we hearing from our sources, also from the White House, just about this resignation? And just tied to that, what's the information that DOGE is looking for here?
Well, Joe and Savannah, good morning. The Social Security Administration is in charge of managing payments for more than 70 million Americans. We know that President Trump has promised not to cut benefits from that particular agency as they're doing this work across the federal government to make cuts. One of the sources familiar with King's resignation in particular said that some of the information involved here in this dispute included bank information, Social Security numbers, birth dates, and in some cases medical records as well. King retired instead of giving up that information. She refused to let Musk's team access those sensitive government documents. Again, that's according to two sources, and the White House has confirmed that she is no longer the person in charge of that agency. We know that the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, gave an interview last night where she talked about this, and she said that the president has directed DOGE teams to identify fraud at the Social Security Administration. There was an anecdote from Elon Musk last week when he spoke in the Oval Office where he said that there was at least a case where someone was collecting Social Security benefits who was 150 years old. So that sort of offers an example of what they describe as waste in that agency. Leavitt did say that his team has not dug into the books just yet, Joe and Savannah, but they do expect that they will find some waste and potentially fraud at the Social Security Administration.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about some bombshell news coming out of the Social Security Administration, because there was some revelations made about what at very least seems to be a very bad system when it comes to keeping up with Social Security payments and who the payments are going to, right? As there has been a discovery about Social Security payments allegedly going to people who are too old to possibly still be alive. Now, President Trump has talked about this in the wake of the Social Security head, the commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Miss Michelle King, deciding to step down as DOGE makes this discovery public. Take a look.
Well, the numbers are just incredible. Liz Peek, let's get into it. Elon Musk posted this graphic on X showing how many people in what age group there are accepting these Social Security checks. It's just pretty incredible that you see ages 110 to 119, 3.6 million. If you're 120 to 129, 3.5 million. I mean, last time I checked, Liz, there was no one in America that's 140 years old.
From 120 years old, people that are 120 years old up to 129, 3,472,000 people. Wow. You know, that can't possibly be, because the record is like, I think it's one person, a woman, lived to 127, but they have 3,472. Okay, but now we're going really in. People from 130 years old to 139 year old, 3,936,000. Wow. I wonder if people are getting paid with all this. I mean, are these checks, and that's what we're checking right now. People from 140 years old to 149 years old, 3,542,000, 140 years old and beyond. Now we're really going, because we're looking to break the record by 25 years. People from 150 years old to 159 years old, 1,345,000. These are in the, by the way, these are in the computer files. This is what they do well.
Michelle King, the head, resigning after the DOGE.
Who resigned?
The head of Social Security.
I don't know. I mean, I resigned or got fired. I think got fired. You know, when you fire somebody, they always resign, and then they say, we resigned. But when you have numbers like that, I think really it's got fired. They have to get fired. Who would keep them? How could you have numbers like this? Now, the big thing is, how many of these people got paid? Were they getting paid? Were they getting paid? How many of them were getting paid Social Security? Because if that's the case, it's a massive fraud.
Yeah, so with those numbers, certainly it looks like there could be some fraud, right? I mean, the Social Security commissioner has now resigned, or according to Trump, he's suggesting that she might have been fired. I don't know if she was fired or she resigned, but regardless, it looks pretty sketchy to have this type of discovery where you have people who are way too old to be alive, right? We're not living in biblical times anymore, okay? Yeah, I mean, you know, they're too old, right? There are no 150-year-old people walking around, right? At least as far as I know. So I don't understand how you're sending out Social Security checks to people that old. I think at the very least, it just shows you how antiquated and bad the government data keeping systems are, right? The fact that you even have this in the first place and it wasn't fixed and organized. It just shows you that the people running our government probably are pretty incompetent and careless and don't really care about the details.
I think, Cheryl, the Democrats are objecting to it because they're embarrassed. They've been supposedly stewards of our economy and stewards of our government for how many years, depending on who you're talking about, and this has been happening on their watch.
The agency's been asleep at the wheel, and I think that is where I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's the system. You know, the why did this happen? And actually, Elon Musk did post about it. He said that the logic flow diagram for the Social Security system looks insane. All capital letters, he wrote, Maria. He says no other person actually knows how it works. You need to get forensic accounting. You need to get programmers. You need to get people from DOGE, that team. You need to get experts on technology and algorithms and accounting systems in there. Why that has never happened in all the decades that you've had thousands of reports about Social Security fraud, about checks that just kept going to somebody's residence after they'd passed away. I mean, come on, Maria. It's just, I can't believe we're finally addressing this.
Yeah, I mean, I am too, right? I am pretty surprised that it took this long to address this. But you know what? When you listen to Democrats and their response to this discovery, well, it kind of tells you everything you need to know about why it took so long, because Democrats just don't give a damn. Like, for example, Mr. Martin O'Malley, who ran for DNC chair, he failed. He was a former commissioner of Social Security. He went to MSNBC to basically say that, hey, the idea that checks are going out to people who are too old to be alive, right, and there may be some fraud going on here, well, that's no big deal, right? It's not a big deal. It's a lie. It's made up. Right? It's not anything to worry about.
This to root out fraud. That's the reason that they're throwing out there. But there is an Inspector General report from 2023 that says improper payments are less than 1% of payouts. Internal estimates put it at about $72 billion over 8 years, so about $9 billion a year. It's significant, but it's actually a small percentage. Is that the real fraud? Like, what are they chasing here?
I don't know exactly what they're chasing. So the biggest threat to Social Security right now is that the co-presidents, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, drive 10,000 people out of the agency, and those benefit checks get interrupted. That's the greatest threat to Social Security now. The other stuff they spew out there about zombies getting checks and 200 million dead Americans getting checks, all total horse hockey. Not true. But what is true is that they can crater this agency. They can do it very quickly, and they have likely no idea how fragile this already depleted and overworked agency is. They're about to find out, though.
Yeah, so I'm really scratching my head on how is it that almost every government agency is depleted, or they're understaffed, or they need more workers, they need more money, when we have increased the size of government exponentially over the past few years, right? Trillions of dollars are spent every single year, but yet all of these agencies somehow are understaffed and underfunded, right? I'm trying to figure out how does that work? How does that work? How much money do these people need? How much money do they need? I don't get it, right? I don't understand it. We're $36+ trillion in debt, and these people are saying that we need more money to make the government work. I get there's something wrong, right? There's just something wrong. But again, Democrats refuse to acknowledge the problem. The same people that told us that the border's not open, right? It's closed. What are you talking about? That's a right-wing conspiracy theory, okay? Inflation is transitory. They told us that Joe Biden was perfectly fine, okay? And if you don't believe that Joe Biden is the sharp as he's ever been, then F you, right? These same people are now saying, look, don't worry about these checks that are allegedly going out to people who are too old to be alive. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Everything's fine. Does anybody really believe this? Seriously, anybody really believe this? Yeah, this is why Democrats are just not having a good time right now when it comes to the approval of the public and what they're doing, because they are just opposed to everything, any type of transparency whatsoever. They're opposed to it, okay? And they're really going to be upset about this ruling that actually came as a surprise from U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, who you guys remember as one of the Trump deranged judges that was presiding over the Jack Smith January 6th case. She actually came out here and refused the request of 14 Democratic state attorneys, you know, the woke DAs, to block Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from sensitive government data, right? She's basically coming out here and saying, well, I'm not entirely sure exactly what's the issue here, right? What harm is being done by this? So therefore, I can't grant this request, which again comes as a surprise, but this is a devastating blow to the Democrats and the lawfare they're trying to wage against President Trump and the agenda that the American people voted for. So without further ado, let's get into this.
As he was speaking, we found out that a federal judge declined to temporarily block Elon Musk and DOGE from accessing federal data. This was something and a ruling we were waiting for, a decision made by the Judge Tanya Chutkan. And this is a blow to a group of Democratic attorneys general who had been making the argument that Musk's role in the government violates the Constitution's appointments clause. So that and more now as we bring in our panel. We have David Weinstein, of course, a former federal prosecutor. We have Mercedes Colwin, who's a criminal defense attorney. Well, Scott's still with us. Scott Bolden, Democratic strategist, has quite a legal background himself. And I also want to talk to Colby Hall about some of what you just heard, the founding editor at Mediaite, News Nation contributor. Mercedes, do you want to start us off on the Chutkan ruling first? And, you know, this is, and we've seen this the last couple of days, Education Department, I think it was yesterday, and now this, where the administration and DOGE, they certainly haven't been losing all of these cases here lately. What do you make of this? We don't have Mercedes, so we don't hear her well.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, you can't mute your. She had to mute herself because she might have said something inappropriate during the president's comments, and now she's there. Go ahead, Mercedes.
I'm here. Thanks for having me, Cottle.
You're welcome.
You're so right that there have been some challenges to this administration, but really it was about the definition of who Elon Musk was within the administration.
Right.
What was most compelling probably is a declaration of Joshua Fisher, who says it's not that Elon Musk is somehow should have been appointed to the administration, but rather he is a special government employee, just like Anita Dunn was, who was an influential senior advisor to President Biden during his administration. So defining who Elon Musk is what really will drive these wins across the finish line. Who is Elon Musk? Was he subject to an appointment? Was he subject to an appointment that needed some more vetting other than this special general type of advisor position that seems to be what makes it a winning argument?
Okay, David, finish up this part of the conversation. And as I said, there's a lot to get to from what we just heard. But your thoughts on the Judge Chutkan ruling?
Connell, looking at strictly from a procedural point of view, they were seeking a temporary restraining order. They didn't meet the standard for the temporary restraining order, as was just pointed out based on that declaration. So for now, he will continue to have access. There's been no finding that there's any violations of the Constitution, but that doesn't mean it's a complete win. Now we move into the discovery phase, the briefing phase, and somewhere down the road, she may change her mind. But for right now, it's a win.
Okay, it is a win for the administration. Earlier we said, well, the courts will check, there'll be the checks and the balances, but not all the time. The administration's actually been doing okay here, especially the last few days. Colby, let me get you in on.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why I told you guys that a lot of these court battles that the Democrats are trying to fight, ultimately they're going to end up losing, right? Because, I mean, the Trump administration, they know what they're doing, right, in regards to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is not really making any decisions. Elon Musk is an advisor to the president. The DOGE team, the people that are actually working on the government systems and stuff like that, they're working under the advisory of the Trump administration, right? So they're working under the heads of these organizations.
Chief of Staff for Policy. Stephen, thank you so much for taking time for us.
So who is in charge of DOGE?
The President of the United States.
He's the administrator of DOGE?
No, the DOGE is what was formerly U.S. Digital Services. It's an agency of the federal government that reports into the executive office of the president, which reports to the President of the United States.
Okay.
The way that Article 2 works is the president wins an election, and then he appoints staff, including myself, including Mike Waltz, including Susie Wiles,
Yes.
including Elon Musk, and those staff report to him.
Okay, well aware. So Elon Musk a week ago answered a question about transparency at DOGE. This is how he spoke about DOGE.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the DOGE handle on X and to the DOGE website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent.
So you hear him there. We post our actions. All of our actions are maximally transparent. Does Elon Musk know he's not in charge of DOGE?
Again, the president runs the government, then the president appoints advisors, including Elon, including myself, including all the other staff here at the White House, and then those staff in turn execute the president's commands and directions to all the agencies of the federal government. This is how democracy works, something that we treasure in America. The whole American people go to the ballot box, they elect the president appoints staff, the staff then administer his orders and directives across the whole U.S. government.
Okay, Stephen, I get that, but this is important because we want to talk about who's making the decisions here. There were 300 employees, the National Nuclear Security Administration, you know about this. They were fired. The agency had to rescind those terminations because these were employees who were critical to maintaining the nation's nuclear stockpile. So then who is it making those decisions of which federal employees are terminated?
Well, in that case, the Secretary of Energy would be the one. So what you're describing with the cuts in the Department of Energy, those are directed by the Senate-confirmed Secretary of Energy.
Okay, so that was the Secretary of Energy's mistake.
Well, I wouldn't use the term mistake. I would say that it's pretty standard when you're downsizing government. You make cuts, you assess those cuts, you see who needs to be rehired, who needs to be kept, who needs to be
That's not what happened here, though, Stephen. You know that they were rescinded. These aren't normal things. These were terminations that were rescinded.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see is a government that is finally delivering a promise of accountability under President Trump. You want to have a conversation about transparency. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with a B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone. Transparency begins with having an accounting of where every federal dollar is spent. And God bless President Trump for leading this effort.
Stephen, it seems like the crisis here had to do with the nation's nuclear stockpile. And for these particular federal workers, which I'm not, so this isn't my personal crisis, military members of the Guard and the Reserve.
I don't think it's a crisis, and you don't think it's well. Hold on. I don't think it's a crisis, and you don't think it's a crisis. Then why are we talking about it?
Military.
Bro, I love Stephen Miller. Right, I love when he goes on CNN and he just makes these anchors look silly, because that's what they are. They're silly, okay? All this is silly. They want to make a big crisis out of some employees getting fired and then getting rehired, okay? After the administration realized, okay, we actually need these people. Let's rehire them. It's just a few days, right? It's a few days of unemployment. It's not that big of a deal, okay? It's not that big of a deal. But for them, it's a big crisis, right? The world is ending, right? Everything is falling apart. And it's not, right? It's not. It's not, okay? So, you know, look, this is a big win for the Trump administration when it comes to this ruling from this judge. Of course, Democrats will continue to try to challenge it. And this is going to be going on for a while. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will have the final say on a lot of these issues. But as of right now, I mean, you know, can anybody really argue that what DOGE is doing is bad? I mean, like, in good faith, can you in good faith argue that these discoveries aren't something that the American people should be concerned about, right? That we need our government to be better. Okay, it needs to operate better. It needs to be leaner and more efficient to serve the people, right? Like who in their right minds thinks that's a bad thing? Apparently the media and the Democrats do. So we'll see how that works out. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.